kick it off.
Let me have a drink out of this water bottle.
We're back. The Konker Pod is back. Uncut, best bits, unseen. What's it called again?
Uncut. Konker Pod, Uncut.
Got it right the first time.
How are you feeling about our new
Setup. Yeah, it's decent. Different. You?
I like it. These, you got to jump on video and have a look. But what do you call these, Pat? Sound insulation that we've got here
Mufflers.
is a really nice addition. I'm quite enjoying it. They, we opened the packets. Oh, phone's off the table. We opened the packets and they didn't. I'm going to keep my phone on the table. That's all right. Because I've got a couple of notes on here. Just haven't got my computer today. Yeah, fine. So yeah, they came out the packets and they're already squished, and then Pat's fixed them to the wall and they've slowly expanded some more. So you can see a few gaps, but it's looking good.
Well, I think the gaps were already there, to be honest, but it's just been so hard to. They've moved a lot.
They have moved.
They've moved a lot.
Making a podcast studio is not easy.
Yeah, great fun.
Let's get some professionals in. Right, what are we talking about? We're back.
Oh, we're talking about all sorts here, really.
What have you been up to?
Nothing too exciting. I have been the last 2 or 3 weeks. It feels flat out meetings, actually. When I say meetings, on the road, life on the road.
Client meetings.
Client meetings, just meeting a lot of, and as many as we can, of our decent clients. And put some miles on the car, sure.
Where have you been?
Went to Oxford, been to Bristol, been to Gloucester. So still quite local, but I mean, Oxford didn't feel local, actually.
It was actually beyond Oxford as well, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was beyond. It was 4 hours back. We had a lot of traffic, but got some really good stuff out of it, actually.
What kind of clients? What companies?
What do you mean?
Yeah, like what businesses?
Oh, one very much like SEO, digital marketing.
Nice.
Another architectural, really great architecture practice, actually. I didn't actually realise how good they were until you go there, which is, again, such a huge benefit of going to these sort of companies, because you realise all of that. And you get given the time to be able to talk through specifics. You see around the office and everybody talks about, what's the office like? The office location is actually a really big part of it, isn't it? Of where you work and everything. But then to actually go there and experience that, your sell to then a candidate and understanding the business is times 10. So yeah, this office in particular was amazing, thankfully.
Yeah.
They owned the building. They're a business of 100 or so. And they've got an awful lot going on, just such great projects. Great people, actually, as well. You really get a vibe from that, from the top down, because it obviously trickles down. But the building is a great spot in Gloucester, so that was nice.
Did they appreciate that? Like you going all that way?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. It's the pattern has been you obviously know this, but pre-COVID, you'd meet everybody. It would just be the norm. You'd get in the car and you'd go and see people. I think the nature of our business was a little bit more local back then, and post-COVID, it hasn't been. We're based in Exeter and do an awful lot, around London, in the Midlands, up north. So it does require a lot of effort, time and energy to actually go to these places for one meeting anyway. One meeting, you're out the whole day sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think it does, bear fruit.
Nice.
Definitely. But yeah, after COVID, we certainly went through a bit of a phase where you just didn't have to really go to meetings. It wasn't really a necessary. You could jump on Microsoft Teams, you could pick up the phone, and let's be honest, it's probably quite easy to make placements.
The thing is as well, Microsoft Teams became the path of least resistance. It
became the new meetings.
It was just the easy way.
And you know what? These 3 or 4 meetings that we've been to over the last 2 or 3 weeks, all of them have said, thanks for coming up and taking the time. No one else has.
Really?
Yeah. Definitely 2 of the 3, maybe 4. So that goes a long way. And I think it just goes to show your commitment to them and wanting to find out as much as possible to be able to sell their business in the best possible way as well. So that's been really good. But yeah, I think we've spoken about it. We're going through a phase of we're meeting everybody. We're getting back on that train, aren't we?
What are we taking when we're going on meetings?
Go on, show them.
We've got new merch.
We've got merch.
So jump on video and have a look. This is an ocean bottle with etched Konker branding on it. Which camera, Pat? That one? There we go. But no, it's just nice, isn't it? So back when we used to go on meetings when we first started our careers, we'd go and take stuff to client meetings, but it'd be like a little bit tatty. And like we've all had it, haven't we? Someone will come in a meeting and there'll be some very plasticky bottles.
Most companies
pens.
will take tat.
Yeah, bits and bobs. And we were like, well, let's actually just take one thing, a little bit more of an investment, buy something that will actually last and that people would actually use rather than just get it and then
cups, pens,
chuck it in the bin a few weeks later.
Notepads, stuff like that. I understand that sort of stuff because it's like an office staple, isn't it, really?
But this is great. Look at this. So I've got 2 different ways of opening it. So I can go for the...
You're not selling the bottle.
I can go for the fast flow or the slow flow. And it's also got a little carry hook there. So if somebody wants to be a client, they get one of them.
Yeah, and isn't already, you'll get one of those. That's a massive incentive.
That's not a call to action. I don't know what is.
But yeah, meetings, what are we getting out of it and what we take in there? Good question. It's developing, I would say. And it's all part of the journey, isn't it, really? You know, we've jumped back into going to meet people face to face. You know, I'm taking a little bit of charge of that. I'm going up and taking consultants to see their clients. I think to start off with, it was a little bit more of a, right, we'll find out more about the vacancies. We'll take bottles and we'll put a name to a face. But it's so much more than that, really. The preparation that's gone into it around that now is really developing, and it's constantly building the more meetings we're doing. Obviously meetings are a lot of the time about the vacancies and learning about the business, that sort of thing, but we're taking it to a little bit of a higher level as well, where it's just a great opportunity to be able to sell without sort of actually selling almost, because it's very like relationships rather than transactional. We've obviously got lots of different services that we want to sell and build our business around. The media side of the business, we've a bit of a partnership with a business called IEE, which is very much headsets and sort of more junior attraction, isn't it, to different types of businesses. We've got the podcast, and we've also got different levels of recruitment services that we can sell to people, which is a little bit more than just contingency. I think we want to build our business around more so the media and the employer branding side, don't we?
Yeah, so the route to go down for us, I see it as, and we spoke about this, we had a vision meeting recently and like laid out a bit of a 5-year plan, or what do we want to look like in 2030. And it's more of like a full service talent attraction agency that can partner with a business to overcome multiple issues, all to do with hiring.
And it's very difficult to talk about that stuff just over the phone when you're known as like just a traditional recruiter. I say just, but like a traditional recruiter. And I think that is what we are known for at the moment. And I feel like that perception is slowly changing. But again, one thing I've learned is these sort of things do just take time. And it is just going to be a case of getting in front of as many people as possible, increasing our marketing efforts so that people know about all these other services that we're working on, and getting to a point where people actually want these sort of things as well. And I feel like it's definitely heading that way, because even if you take LinkedIn, for example, this time last year, there wasn't a lot of video on LinkedIn. There were some really good like professional videos that were put together by professionals from like company pages and stuff like that, a lot bigger stuff. But now a lot more people are embracing video. You scroll through LinkedIn and a lot of it is video, isn't it? I think a lot more people have got the confidence to be on video in front of the camera, that sort of thing. So I think just the whole, all technology is all changing. So it's just that much more accessible. And I feel like we've jumped into that at a good time to offer those services, because that is what is going to be able to help the better businesses attract talent, rather than just being able to post an advert and going through the normal means of recruitment. So we want to do both really well.
Yeah, spot on. And said it loads of times. You go into the office of the architecture practice that you mentioned and like seeing their offices and like, we've recruited for them. We kind of know them as a business. We've got, a good understanding of a lot of the structures of like their teams and their benefits and their projects and all the stuff that we do. But so much of like the important things that aren't necessarily on a website, like the office and the culture, there's no better way to talk about that or show that than through video.
Yeah.
And putting content out there.
And it's the part which everybody likes to hang their hat upon. You go to a business and everybody says, "Oh, we're such a people business. We're so personable. We've got a great culture." Okay, most people say that. everybody says it, but like demonstrating it is the hardest bit. So if you're not putting a massive emphasis on what you perceive to be your main attraction or your biggest USP or your EVP to employees out there in the best possible way, you're just going to look like any other business. And basically what you're going to do is write all of that in an advert like everybody else. And you are going to put a title and a salary out there on an advert. And that's what your culture is going to be.
Yeah. Just going back to meetings as well, I just wanted to bring something else up that was another thing that we're trying to do in terms of like offering exceptional value to the clients that we recruit for. You mentioned about going there and like sell them this and talk about these kind of services that we can offer. But a big like route that we're going down at the moment is more of an educational sort of consultative approach as well. So I know that you went to one of your meetings recently armed with like loads of data, loads of talent insights.
So kudos, let's say, to Hannah here. She spent a lot of time putting together a bit of a, not really sure what to call it, a fact-finding sheet, I suppose.
Yeah, it was almost like a market report.
Yeah, which sort of has educated the client into a lot of different things, from salary, a sort of survey, a few different bits and bobs she's pulled off LinkedIn Insights, where they stand in comparison to competitors. So lots of information that would actually be typically quite hard for them to find, that we've got the resources for, which we use to recruit, but they may not necessarily know that we use to recruit and actually build the best picture of their business.
Yeah, so some of the stuff that was in there is the professionals that they're recruiting for, where are they moving? So, those job titles, who's hiring those people the most? Which companies are they leaving and going to?
Attrition rates.
Yeah, which companies had the highest attrition rates? Which companies had grown the most over the last 12 months? Like loads of this data that can help you just make better informed decisions or, change your business in certain ways. And then especially like the salaries part, I think there was, in the middle of the meeting, somebody said in there, we need to change the salary bracket for that role because it was just really evident they weren't paying enough.
That was one of the outcomes. Yeah, there's a few. Hannah put a really comprehensive sort of list together in terms of salaries and compared them with about 6 different businesses just from like what she's heard of in her niche. And that was one of the outcomes. A couple of the positions, they sort of believe they're probably not paying enough and they need to up because they're struggling to find. So that was really good. And if that gives them a better opportunity to find people and find the right people, then we've done our job, haven't we, really? All this information is actually very difficult to find unless you've got the right kind of tools.
Yeah.
So that was really great. We've sort of been through a bit of a process recently of trying to sort of better that information that we can send to them. And a bit of an idea that you had was the sort of social reports, wasn't it, as well?
Yeah, just like how you compare to your competitors in terms of like your social media awareness and how much your brand from an employer standpoint is out there. Because again, like the company that you went to meet in Gloucester, I don't know how busy they are on social media, but I don't see a lot from them. Yeah, they're a big practice, big architecture practice, several offices, a couple of hundred employees, amazing projects. And like,
what presence have they got?
What presence have they got? And if they've got just such a wider presence out there, when they are recruiting, more people would just apply to them directly.
Definitely. And it's really hard communicating that to them, isn't it?
Yeah.
Spend more money with us so that you can have more direct applications.
Yeah. It's always a bit counterintuitive, isn't it? But that's where like the real long-term partnership comes into play.
Yeah, that's it. But I just don't feel like maybe the industry that we're in at the moment, or maybe like a lot of industries, have realised it just yet. There's so much conversation about like personal brand and like company brand at the moment, isn't there? So much more so because it's that much more accessible with LinkedIn and social media. You can just reach that many more people. So I feel like a lot of industries are catching up with that. And, you hear all like the podcasts, Priestley, Stephen Bartlett's raving on about it, Galloway, they're just all talking about personal brand, aren't they? And how that can be a massive like benefit to bring in new leads into your business. So with providing a lot of like this social proof and this social data, what your LinkedIn followers are, where you stand in comparison to your other competitors, is actually great like resource for us to take to clients and then say, look, we can help you improve on this as well. We're not just here to recruit, but if you better this, you're going to be able to recruit a lot more yourselves. Yeah.
And so many, like, again, using architecture as the example, if you're an architecture practice based in Bristol, for example, or Gloucester or wherever you may be, and you've got a list of 5 or 6 companies that are your direct competition and you want to see how you do compare to them on like LinkedIn, for example, if you're an admin on your company LinkedIn page, just jump into analytics. There's like a competition section in there. You can pick the companies that you want to compare yourself to. And then on a weekly, monthly, yearly basis, you can go back and just look at all the data of who's been doing the most on social media, whose followers have increased the most, who's had the most engagement. And straight away, you're going to have a much better idea of how you compare to your competitors just on a social landscape.
And like from a recruiter's point of view with all of this as well, we get a really good candidate. Let's be honest, if people are recruiting, everybody's interested in really good candidates, aren't they? Let's say they're a top 5% candidate, 1% candidate. So you obviously want them in the business. They're going to have options. They're going to have a few options. If they look at 5 different businesses, they're probably going to be most interested in the one that brands themselves the best and portrays themselves in the best light. Yes, other like things like salary and title and job and all that sort of stuff comes into it, but it's usually the case, isn't it? Branding is such a big part.
Yeah, a lot of first impressions.
Just for us to be able to get their permission to send a CV over and open up the conversation, that's when you can do your part. But from a recruiter's point of view, the better the branding you've got, the easier it is to get a permission for a candidate to send over a CV. That's our job. Then once you've got the CV and you've opened that door, that's when you can do your job, sort of thing. Yeah. But from a candidate attraction point of view, to have like decent branding, to portray your culture in the best light, to use video, to have a good advert and a good web page and everything. Yeah, we've gone on about it so many times. It seems like really simple.
Keep going, go on, keep going.
I don't feel like companies actually realise this yet.
You got to get them in the door first, don't you?
Yeah, you get a company who are flipping amazing, like got everything, great opportunity, and they've got 3 pages on their website, which was last touched 2 years ago. It's that much harder for us to get their CV in front of you, but it's also those candidates, if they're applying directly, they're going to be less incentivized to actually approach your business than a company that brands themselves really nicely. May not have the better opportunity for them, but brands themselves well.
Yeah, what's mad is like sometimes we'll speak to candidates and mention a few companies and they just will never have heard of them.
No.
And it's like, well, we know they're quite prominent names in the industry. We know they're good companies. They're doing a lot of really good things, but a candidate might say, yeah, never heard of them. So you just got to be heard of in the first instance. Yeah, that's step one.
Yeah. So again, if you want a bottle and if you want to be a Konker client and you want to work on your branding and your recruitment, we can provide all this data.
We're really selling in this episode, aren't we?
And all this information. We can do a lot of the technical, analytical stuff from LinkedIn, which is actually really expensive. Not a lot of companies' clients have that. No. Even like the best talent acquisition teams don't have a lot of like the insights and the sort of tools that we've got. The social reports as well, fairly easy to find if you're looking in the right sort of place, but we can provide that if you want us to put that together. But we can also put like a bit of a market report in terms of what the perception is of your business out there in comparison to others from a recruiter's point of view, but also from a candidate's point of view. Yeah. And that is very much data that we can put together rather than sticking our finger in the air and seeing what comes back.
Yeah. And then like the media side of things as well, that's really been taken off the last couple of months, which Pat and I have been focusing on loads. And there's some like really nice examples where we've worked with some smaller businesses that they're such passionate experts in their industry and they know so much about it and they've got so much to share and so much knowledge to just sort of get out there. And like it's such an interesting perspective as well that it's just not been happening for them. Whereas now I feel like they've realised that there's a platform in video and content and getting this stuff out there that they're just going to share their story so much more. I mean, we had one recently we done, go on, were you going to say something?
Well, I was just going to say, very simply, it's so much of it's a much easier medium to be able to portray such specialist information and expertise rather than writing things down.
Because who's going to read a massive block of text?
It's impossible.
Yeah,
and also, who's going to understand it?
Yeah.
If you're talking about it, you can talk about it in the most technical fashion possible and then summarise at the end for us.
Get ChatGPT to do it.
Yeah. So it's a great form of communication. Go on.
Yeah, so we were working with this company recently called Burton Reed. They are an ecology and biodiversity business or consultancy based in Devon. We went to do, they're having a new website developed, so we went to do like an introductory video to the new website. introducing them as a business, what their sort of specialisms are, who their clients typically are, and just a short piece of content really. And part of that was going to a site that they worked on to capture some like B-roll and establishing shots just to make that a more engaging piece of content. But while we were there, we ended up having a bit more time, and it turned into this sort of documentary style expose, sort of conversation about the industry in general and some of the stuff that they'd done on this project. And it was one of the most interesting afternoons I've had in such a long time.
Loves his bats.
No, we were just talking about so many areas of the industry, and I've got, I'm interested in sort of nature, environment, and construction, and how they all go hand in hand. So it was great for like Pat and I. We were just there like asking questions and sort of interviewing the whole thing at the same time. But we ended up capturing loads of really interesting content, and that's going into like a bit of an insight series. They're going to release that alongside the launch of a new website, drive some more traffic to the new website. All of that content can feature on the new site in time as well, and it'll all be linked to YouTube. So from like an SEO standpoint, there's loads of benefits there. And I see that really helping them move forward as a business, because they're going to have such a louder voice in the industry that they kind of deserve, because they've got the expertise, but they just need to get out there. That kind of makes sense. I feel like they've got so much good stuff to share, but how's like the best way to share it? And potentially they're finding the best way to share it. So that's been really exciting.
So like we've done those sort of bits and bobs. What other things have we done with like the Konker Media? And I think that there'll be a separate podcast with this, but what are the main things we've done, and what do we feel people get the most value from using Konker Media and putting stuff together? Yeah,
so other stuff we've done recently was obviously that, but we also done a, I don't know if I'll say who it's with, it's not out yet, but we done a meet the team type video, but that's also going to be used from more of a professional CV standpoint for when they're tendering for projects. They want to do something that's a little bit different. Sort of put their team across that's going to be working on the scheme in like a CV format, but then they've got a video to accompany that introduces you to who they are, what they do. And what I love about that is it builds an element of trust like straight away, and you feel like you actually know the people. So yeah, there's a real value add from their standpoint doing that.
I think if you like, the veterinary stuff, if you've got something like real good technical expertise that you want to shout about, or anything that you want to shout about, whether it's like a project or something new coming up, or like a new team member, that sort of thing, and anything you want to shout about is a great place to be able to do it over video, because people stop and watch. And sometimes people can think, oh, these things are really expensive to spend, I don't know, money on a video which you maybe only use once. But like, we're just not seeing that to be the case where these videos are being used once, because we can put together all this content for you. Let's say the finished product is 1 5-minute long video. There's an awful lot of snippets you can get from that. You can have it on your website, which is constantly going to be there. You can have it on your social media. You can repost it for lots of different things and different parts within that. So there's loads of things we can put together with that, isn't there? Yeah,
I see it building up a bit of like a content bank. So if somebody finds you and thinks they're an interesting company, they've got some interesting ideas, and they go and land on your website or go through your social media, they can just go back through and actually see that you've posted all this content in the past, and there's a bank of knowledge there that you've shared previously. And straight away, someone can find out so much about you. If that's a client or a potential employee, they can really, get to know you through all this content that you've posted over the years. Which is hard to see like the value in that in the first instance when you're first posting these things and maybe not getting anything from it.
But you do it once.
Yeah, but in time, you've built up all this value behind you.
Yeah, it's great exposure, and not all companies are doing this, but the ones that are doing it are actually seeing the value. We're case in point, aren't we? Really?
Yeah.
And we didn't think we would.
No.
It was a bit of an experiment to start off with, and now we're here selling it and preaching it.
Yeah.
So there's lots of different things we can do, and what we want to do as well is, yes, we want to create these amazing cinematic magical pieces, should we call it that, which are potentially like one-offs for specific projects or specific points of expertise, that sort of thing, which you can use time and time and time again and get lots out of. But Pat, you had some great ideas in terms of like docuseries elements to maybe like projects that are going throughout the construction phases, planning phases, all this sort of stuff. So areas which we're big on, built environment, there's so much opportunity there for you to be able to showcase like the projects that you're working on.
There's so much opportunity there. Like, especially if it's quite a prominent project that a lot of people know about, talk about. If you were to just invest a bit more time, effort and energy and resource into documenting the process as you go along, it doesn't need to be massively elaborate, but just putting something together, there's a piece of content there that is going to add value to everything you do in the future forevermore.
And like, what are the benefits to that? You're going to attract people that don't know about the industry and don't know about what you do every day. You're going to show clients exactly, what you do behind the scenes that they're paying for. You're going to show off these types of projects to potential employees that, a big part in the construction industry is what type of projects you're working on. I want to work on exciting projects. Well, here you go. Here's an exciting project. And this is exactly what we're doing. So it's just three benefits really, like, easily that thing or thought of just off the top of your head. You're attracting young people, you're getting new people into the industry, you're attracting new employees, and you're attracting new business.
Yeah, the big one for me as well is the old like, know and trust, and that's both from like a potential employee standpoint and a client. It's like I said, it's people don't quit jobs, they quit bosses. And obviously the like, know and trust ties into people buy from people they like, know and trust. So again, like video, getting yourself out there, getting your personality out there, getting your projects out there, just builds all of those things.
Very much so. So that was a good chat. Didn't expect to have that. One last thing, which I think we've experienced over the last couple of weeks is, and I think we've spoken about this a few times, but it's just worth talking about and going on about, is interview experience. Something which we're sort of putting together and trying to change a little bit for ourselves. I think there's, things that which we aren't doing quite right, even as recruiters. But then we've also had a few clients that maybe haven't quite got their interview experience right. Have they?
What's been some of the feedback?
Well,
I'll give you a couple of examples I've had. I have an example where the candidate, so this was a candidate we had an interview with a client, and they felt that maybe the clients had actually never interviewed before, which is quite interesting. It's like, and that might even be the case. Yeah. Actually, I don't know if that was the case or not, but it was like they felt the interviewers maybe hadn't interviewed before.
And didn't feel engaged in the conversation.
Yeah.
Which really off-putting. It can be really off-putting for the candidate because you've got that one chance to be able to sell your business and actually engage with them, and maybe it feels like that's not the case. Yeah. So that's really difficult. So
what do you do to rectify that?
What do you do to rectify that? Well, as recruiters, we've got to provide as much information on process as possible. Even if companies feel like they've got a good process, I think like having the documentation, having those consultative conversations to educate them. If they have got it right, brilliant, you've done your job. If they haven't, even better, because you're going to better things for them to be able to attract better talent. So I think we've just got to have more conversations around that and put more information out there about best interview process. So that's something which we can definitely do. But if you're a client of ours, and if you're not a client and want a bottle, we have got all this resource and we have got all this information which we can give away for free, to be totally honest.
What have we done with our own process? We've changed that recently, slightly.
I think we've just made it a little bit shorter and sharper.
We've been having quicker. Too long conversations.
Yeah, maybe we've been wasting time. Maybe we put a little bit too much importance on personality. Difficult to say.
I think we've been, our issue is we love to really get to know people. Yeah. And we'd come in and they'd meet you and I, for example, we'd have a nearly 2 hour long conversation. And then it'd be like, well, we want to get them back for a second stage because that's what we've always done. We should do that. We should carry on. And then they come back in and have another 2 hour conversation with 2 other people that would be most of the same stuff.
Yeah, probably the same. And it's difficult, isn't it? Because on one hand, you want all of your key players in the business to meet this person and be able to give the thumbs up. On the other hand, you don't want to provide a shit experience, talk about the same things, waste 4 hours of their time, potentially more, for it to either be a no or just waste time doing that when really you only needed a couple of people to give the thumbs up who would probably have the same opinion as a lot of people in the business anyway.
So I'd say the best place to start to improve your interview process is to actually ask for feedback from a candidate. Yeah. Actually ask, what did you think of the recruitment, the interview experience?
Honest,
what should we do differently?
Honest and potentially anonymous feedback would be very useful. And again, that is something which we can provide.
Stop selling.
Well, I'm not selling. Just saying, this is what we can do.
Yeah, fair.
Which would be really, really useful. And even if you feel like you've got your, your interview process right, it is really worth checking to see what others are doing as well and trying to compare, because you can have it right and feel like your process is really good and working for you, but it might not be working for the candidate. And there could potentially be a lot of other interview processes out there with your competitors, which are working better for the candidate, and they're getting those candidates the best talent because it's working better for them. Now, there's loads of like mitigation in this, one hand, the other hand, blah, 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 all that sort of thing. But you do want to have a fairly consistent interview process with other competitors and get the same amount of information out of it so that you are providing a good experience. You've got to get the right sort of information, but you've got to provide a good experience, and you don't want to make the interview process hard or difficult enough to put a candidate off.
It's a fine balance, isn't it? You need to like test commitment, but not make it so difficult that somebody that's busy in work and has got a lot going on.
And at a time where candidates are scarce, you just really need to make sure you've got it right. So check with us, ask if you've got it right, and we'll help.
Hopefully we'll know. And you'll get a bottle. We wrapping that up?
I think that's fine.
See you next time.
See you next time.